Dave, thank you so much for being here for our Lean Celebrity interview. We're here talking to Dave Beaumont. Dave Beaumont is a consulting, you're not a partner, Dave. I'm trying to remember some sort of level, associate partner. Is that where we're
That's
at?
correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Dave's an associate partner for McKinsey. He's got a long career doing this lean work, the stuff we're talking about in this class. I think, Dave, you actually went to Cal Poly and started as an intern for Toyota back in the newbie days. So
1991, as scary as that sounds to me now, but yeah.
You know, that's about the same time I was starting to do this stuff too. So so we're kind of in the same ballpark. So Dave, thank you for being here. I understand you're zooming in from Detroit today, and we're kind of kidding a little bit as you sort of came on that you've been doing lean stuff all over the world, all kinds of businesses and processes. But now they kind of threw you back into auto land. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your job and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was joking, but I've done in this week planes, trains, and automobiles. So I'm helping one aerospace OEM improve the flow of their commercial jets. I'm helping one train manufacturer. It's a MRO, so it's a overhaul operation with trains, so kind of like BART type trains.
Okay.
And I'm here in Detroit helping one of the big three automotive players improve productivity on one of their new lines. So yeah,
Right.
work balance, all the things you guys are just talking about. Yeah. I'm right in the heart of that. So yeah, it's very relevant. Yep.
Yeah, very cool. And I know McKinsey has strict confidentiality rules. So, but big three gets us into the ballpark, right? So it's
that's as close as I can come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's reasons for that, right? I mean, if everybody knows that we're in some company, then they make little bets here and there, and we just don't want any part of that, right? So
yeah. Okay.
It's part of why our clients come back to us, because we have very good confidentiality agreements.
Yeah. So Dave, like what is the, like when you're helping companies from a lean standpoint, you just heard we had 4 mini projects. We got teams going in to try to help out different businesses and organizations. Maybe it would be helpful to them to sort of hear, well, how does it happen in the big leagues? Do you do the same sort of thing that we're doing in our class here, or what does that look like?
It's certainly pieces of it, right? I mean, generally we would start off with what we call an IDP, an independent diligence. It's basically a diagnostic across 3, if it's operations, 3 primary things. We look at all the technical stuff. So that's work balance, labor, equipment performance, maintenance, quality, production planning, plant layout, and things like that in that bucket. Then we look at all the management systems. So you guys talked about KPIs. We look at KPIs, org structure, goals and objectives. How do you know if you have had a good day or a bad day? How do you link that back into financials? How robust is that? And then we look at culture. Culture is the one often missed. Why do people want to come to work or not want to come to work? What gets you up in the morning? What brings you in? And as important, what's going to keep you from wanting to be involved in an improvement program, right? So generally come in and do a diagnostic across all those. So it won't be just one. It would be like we want to get a full independent perspective on where they are compared to best practices, compared to some of their relative peers, size that opportunity, and then we'll walk through, okay, well, it's great if you size it as one thing, but putting a plan together and getting everybody rallied around how you're going to drive the governance of that, all that stuff is pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, and David, you mentioned something in that, as the more we look at sort of organizations that are trying to do this lean stuff, we realize how important the cultural aspect is. And one of the things you mentioned was, well, how do you get people to work on lean improvement projects, right? You know, I kind of go back. I remember you've been a celebrity guest many times before in this class, and you know, sharing some of your stories about, you know, how do you get unions to buy in to actually sort of do this sort of improvement work when it's, you know, not part of their job description and whatnot. But like, what are some of the ways that you try to get people to do this kind of work or make that extra contribution in their jobs?
Yeah, it really does come back to what's in it for me. I mean, if you're at work, you know, why would I get involved? What's the benefit to me, particularly unions? I argued with the one you were talking about, or one you remember, is it was an aircraft MRO facility. The union had just gone through losing 3,000 of their brothers and sisters, right, to a cutback. There was a big leadership payout, and there was pension loss. So you can imagine how excited they were to have a group of consultants come in and say, let's get better. But so it started pretty adversarial. But the conversation I had with the union was like, look, this is a better tool for you than it is for senior leaders. If you want a voice, which is kind of what all employees want, and fair pay, I want a voice, and I want some sustainability, some stability in my life, you know, in the job, so it's protected. You know, I feel like I'm getting paid well for others, and I want some voice. Well, lean completely does that, right? I mean, you're very open, and you get the tools to really put everything right out in front of you. You guys were talking about the, you know, the Pareto of losses and the issues, and the, you know, putting this problem statement out there. We're helping to give that voice. I mean, lean helps you get that voice. So it's actually pretty easy to share with folks frontline of why they should be involved and what are the benefits. And so I kind of pride myself in what clients that I've worked with advance in their career because of working on the projects we're working on. And it's a pretty healthy number of folks that I still have on my list. Young engineer in Fiji Water, you know, same age as most of your students, and he's now running 6 plants. And at the time, he was a buried engineer in the back office, just really smart and energetic. And we're like, get on the team, and kicking and screaming, but he's done really well. So those kinds of things I think are good motivators. You know, can you help the career? Can you make my life better? Can you give me more of a voice? Those things are pretty easy to tell in the world.
Yeah, and you know, David, I think that's right. And one of the things I like about lean is, you know, it turns you from, you know, a victim into, you know, somebody who can make a difference, right? So we all sort of sit around and complain about our jobs, but lean gives you some tools and some approaches and ways of thinking that you can actually maybe go in there and fix something, right? Make it better.
Yeah, that's I mean, I really chose my career for travel more than anything else. Certainly Toyota as a baseline in the beginning, the co-op, the internship I did while I was at Poly, kind of gave me the view into a pretty cool company that was doing a lot of things, but I just wanted to travel. And operations is, you know, and lean is really important across the board. I mean, I've done everything from jet engines to tea plantations, from Kenya to Australia to Fiji to, right? I mean, 30 plus countries taking this out. So that's what drove me for it more than, you know, being a lean person. But operations and the topics that you're teaching there are very relevant still today. Of course, there's more digital tools out than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and they're really some cool stuff. Particularly, we were talking, one of the students, I think it was Francis, on the process of scheduling. There's some great tools out there that help you automate and understand the precedence, like what has to come first, what goes second, how do you balance that work. It's all advanced analytics now, so you have to really understand that to incorporate into lean these days. But and dashboards, digital dashboards, all this stuff. It's kind of live data. You just need to know how to mine it and put it out in front of you in a good way, right?
Yeah, I think that the opportunities, for big data and analytics are always there, but one of the things I always go, and maybe it's because I'm an old guy now, is that, one of the things that I want to be able to do is I want to know what's the least amount of data I can have to make a good decision, right? And I think, lean allows you to do that. There's some stuff that we just know that are just sort of good, like, is less inventory is better than more inventory, and, less time is better than more time. So as long as you're always got that sort of directionality, sometimes it doesn't take a lot of data to know what's a good thing to do, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a data overload, and that's a typical issue, right? Where they have so much data, it doesn't tell you anything. It's like cry wolf, right? Which one do I look at? So yeah, getting the 3 to 5 that matter, I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Getting a little easier. I mean, I've gone away from the old school, need a whiteboard every time. I use the whiteboard for problem solving. I use the digital for giving me the data, so I don't have to basically copy the data onto the screen. It should just populate for me. But I still like to draft out the problem solving stuff, the live problem solving. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if I find 3 to 5 cascaded across the organization, it should start at the top, and those measures somehow cascade down to every individual underneath, which is where the challenge comes in. But and it's that and meeting paralysis. I mean, people love to meeting after meeting after meeting. I'm like, okay, this is the Toyota way was, standing room only. Like, you stand, you don't sit. So if you're standing, you tend to want to get out of there instead of just be comfortable and sit. And that's the other place we tend to attack.
Yeah. Hey Dave, I'm gonna try to open this up to the students and ask you questions. If you got a question for Dave, go ahead and type it into the chat, and we'll ask you to sort of read it out. And Dave's an old hand at that. We've been doing this together for probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 years now, Dave, I would imagine. And Dave is a co-conspirator in trying to get Cal Poly students engaged and asking questions. So
yeah, now with Zoom, I have all your names, so you're really in trouble.
Yeah, really. You can see all the names on the screen there, so you just ask them if they have a question. But if you got a question, raise your hand or type it in the chat, and we'll get you connected with Dave. And Dave is always good for giving you not only lean advice, but career advice. I know a lot of students are excited about how to get that first job with some travel involved and whatnot. So that's fair game. So Dave, could you share with us maybe either a current challenge or a challenge that comes to mind where you had to sort of work through some problem in an organization and apply some lean thinking to it?
Well, we're actually dealing with so the work balance question came up, right? But when you're looking at an organization, I use this thing called touch time. It's much like OEE, but it's for any kind of operation. It could be the back office engineering stuff we were talking about, or it could be maintenance. Is generally used on maintenance. They call it wrench time. How much are you physically turning the wrench versus anything else? Because the only value there is when you're a mechanic or a surgeon, is you've got the tool in hand and you're doing something with it. So we often find the calculations for am I loaded, am I productive, not very accurate. So we're working through that right now, where one company will say, yeah, I'm loaded to 90%, but when you dig in underneath that, it's more like 50. A significant difference in balancing that. Is kind of the challenge we're going after. So how do we do it effectively? And luckily, when you're in a growth line, you don't have to talk about, you're not going in there to go after heads. You're looking to grow the company, and these days it's more of a challenge to get the staff than it is, right? Just finding people who want to turn wrenches is more of a challenge. The controls engineers working on the screens, that stuff is a far less issue. So this is about like just loading it effectively so you have the right kind of head count. And then on top of that is we got to deploy a pretty good performance onboarding process to improve the training and building those capabilities. I still love the dojos, the room that, you join this company, you're going to learn what their operational excellence approach is, basic problem solving, all that kind of stuff, because it gives you so much more value when you have the workforce capable. And in this one in particular, they have IEs doing the work. And I told them we didn't have any IEs. I tell you that after they set up the initial line, it was all the 4,000 people on the line that were doing the work. And to get to that level takes a ton of effort, right? To get that level. So anyhow, that's one of the things I'm working through, and it has a host of the lean tools behind it, right? Depending on which rabbit hole we'd want to go down. Yeah.
You had a question.
Oh, is the question behind me? Okay. There we go.
I'm Marcus. I'm curious to know what kind of professional and personal lessons you learned as a result of being a consultant.
So
No, I
Dave,
didn't.
you get that?
No, I didn't get that fully.
Yeah, what personal and professional lessons have you learned in being a consultant or as a consultant? So you get some big takeaways. I know that's going to be my wrap-up question, but you do a preview.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that it's what I tell all our experienced hires or new hires and students when I come in. I've always followed the lesson is always reflect on whether you like your job, which I do every 6 months. I honestly ask me the question of, do I want to stay here or not? What's keeping me here? Because if you're not doing something you're passionate about, you're not going to be very effective. You're not going to be satisfied. The whole work-life balance is a challenge. And as a consultant, you're on a road. I mean, I've got probably 6 million miles flown in aircraft. I still have 3 million frequent flyer miles to use, right? So I get around a lot. And if I didn't like travel, that would be a really bad choice that I've made. So it's just work on something you're passionate about. And I guess the lesson of something not great is when you don't say no. You got to figure out how to say no to things along those same lines. I'm not going to work on things that I'm not passionate about. If you don't say no on some of the things or figure out politically how to say no, you could be really dissatisfied. So we kind of have this, we have this term obligation to dissent, which is kind of on that same level, so speak up, give your advice and make decisions that you're passionate about, and also make decisions that you think you'll be disappointed if you didn't.
So well, before we go on to the question in chat, and I'll move on to that, but I just want, Lauren and Wes here, obligation to dissent, from Dave Beaumont. I think that is a quiz question for the next. What do you think?
Well, I think
Does that get everybody's attention?
the answer.
Yeah, okay. Well, that'll be the answer to some question. So everybody get ready for that. Who's in the chat? Nellie, can you ask a question, Dave?
Oh, sure. I was just wondering, what was your most memorable Lean Six Sigma experience in an organization that you felt made the most difference, financially or with efficiency in the organization?
It depends on what metric we would use. I mean, honestly, for me, that union was one of my best experiences. I mean, they were struggling, right? And I stuck them in between. I stuck two unions together to kind of hash out, what's it like to work in Lean. And they rewrote their contract. They put Lean into their contract, so that, because leadership teams change, unions don't, right? You have the same union, but you have a revolving doors on some of the leadership positions, and they were keen on keeping that. And it became part of their culture. You know, this is the way we want to work. Here's how we're going to engage. You know, here's what our involvement is. And we did that by putting the union in charge of the communication for the project, right? So it's kind of hard not to be involved if you're responsible for communicating this out to the workforce. So that for me was like one of the bigger ones. I forget the total value kind of thing, because there was certainly more financial impact, but that one personally from a culture perspective was big. You know, I've seen some really large, you know, historical kind of change in organizations, which is always fun, because those are kind of globally combining to do the work. But when it hits culture and you're improving people's, you know, day-to-day lives, that feels pretty good. So I kind of put that on the top.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Dave. And thanks, Nellie, for that question. Dave, so we're trying to keep these a little bit tighter. So I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap it up for today. Like I said, we kind of spilled the beans a little bit on, you know, some key piece of advice for the next generation of lean leaders sitting here behind me and on Zoom up here in front of me. But do you get some walkaway piece of advice for these guys?
Yeah, well, since I already gave that last one, I'll go back to like the topic on the advanced analytics piece and digital. Just, I mean, it's just exploding across all industries, and even out in our valley, right? Out in the valley, farmers are using analytics to figure out how to grow stuff these days. And we got to figure out how to feed, you know, 9 billion people over the next, you know, 10, 20 years, right? So it's a crazy industry. So anyhow, my advice would be like really look into the explosion of automation, technology, digital. I mean, I expect you guys already are in that to a large degree, but that's really where you see things moving. There was the presentation you have, Eric, on Davos with the World Economic Forum, going into the lighthouses across the globe that have kind of really explored digital, and most organizations are doing it. So the more comfortable you become in that, the more relevant you'll be at interviews for talking to these guys.
All right.
And girls.
Dave, thanks once again. So as a thank you to you, I'm going to ask everybody to turn on your videos. And Dave, if you want to switch over to gallery view, you kind of see some of the lives you did effective. But if everybody gives Dave a wave, thank you, Dave. Thank you for doing this. And hopefully we'll see you in San Luis Obispo soon.
I'm there. I keep telling all the students that, hey, just grab me for coffee. I'll go into more detail about career anytime you want. So I'm there for the poly students for sure. So.
All right, Dave. Thank you very much. We'll see you later. Take care.